You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast. It's season number 2. It's episode number 43. Cubs meatloaf. Not good enough. Don't forget to listen, download, review. Most importantly, subscribe to our podcast and to follow us on the socials. Fly the W670 on Twitter, Instagram, Fly the W on Facebook. Or don't forget, you can email us at flythew670@gmail.com. Crawly, happy beginning of a new week. It's a Monday when you and I are sitting down doing this together, and the Cubs are back after a 4-6 West Coast 3-city road trip. So not great, but certainly not as bad as it looked like it could have gone. How was the weekend for you overall?
Overall good, man. I'm excited. I got the bags packed ready for Myrtle Beach on Wednesday, so that'll be fun. Make sure everyone's following because I'll have tons of content from down there. But like you said, 4-6 is not a bad West Coast road trip. But there was this quote that Jed Hoyer put out there. I thought it was interesting. He said, quote, "I'd find it hard to 2 out of 3 way our way to a really good place. We're going to have to win a bunch of games in a row." And I think that quote is really important because, we talked, the last title of our show was Cubs are 10 games under. Well, they're 9 games under. 2 out of 3 ain't going to cut it anymore. They have to go on a streak. And again, that doesn't mean that the Cubs are, like the season's going to end in a month, but Jed's got to make decisions, right? And so David Ross kind of countered that, said, well, that's more of a 30,000-foot view maybe from the front office would take. I'm focused on winning every day. If it turns into 15 in a row, great. I don't get into a series thinking. I'm happy if we take 2 out of 3, and I'm not if we don't sweep. So I get what he's saying, but this is a team that has to go on a run if they want to get back into this thing, if they want to be considered buyers and not sellers, and they're running out of time. So yeah, 2 out of 3, most of the time you'll always take that. But when you're 9 games under 500 with a bunch of teams in front of you, you don't have the luxury of kind of just taking your time doing 2 out of 3, 2 out of 3. You have to show Jed that this team can compete, and it's worthwhile to start looking at either giving out some extensions or adding players.
Well, 2 out of 3 would be okay over the next 9 games, but in 6 of those 9 games coming up, Crawly, they've got the Pirates, the first place Pittsburgh Pirates, 3 at Wrigley, then the Orioles come in, and then the Cubs go to Pittsburgh. So if you could get on a little bit of a run like Jed Hoyer is calling for, you could really make a dent in that first place Pirates lead right now.
Absolutely.
It starts with this week. Listen, they are back home. It's been a long time coming. They get a day off today, and then they got 3 night games in a row against the Pirates at Wrigley Field. You know what? Sweep the Pirates, and now we're talking.
Right. But here's the trouble is they're having trouble sweeping teams, as we saw in San Francisco, correct?
Right. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. I was saying just please don't get swept. Looked like the Cubs were on their way. So let's get into it, Crawly. Let's get into the 3-game series against the Giants. Friday night was game 1. And Marcus Stroman, who's not only throwing well, but had a lot to say, started in this one.
Yep. And what can you say about Stroman other than he's done it again? 12th quality start and his 5th straight win, 6.2 innings, gave up 2 runs, 4 walks, and 5 Ks. His ground ball to fly ball rate was 13 ground balls and no flyouts. I mean, that's just incredible. All the balls are he's either striking people out or they're ground balls. I mean, just phenomenal. Only trouble he got in was in the 3rd one with 2 outs. He walked Lamont Wade Jr. He gave up a single to Jock Peterson, and then Tyro Estrada doubled to give the Giants a 1-0 lead. Estrada had a great series, as did former Cub Jock Peterson. He was cruising until the bottom of the 7th when he gave out a 1-out double to Brandon Crawford. He got Lamont Wade to ground out to advance the runner to 3rd. That was the end of the night for Stroh, and then Mark Leiter was the first out of the pen. He gave up a cheap roller to Jock that, you were just trying to blow to the foul area, hit a pebble or something, scored a run, got the final out, and Leiter finished the 8th, and Albert closed it out for the 9th. We talked about how much we have enjoyed watching Adbert. That was his 5th straight outing without giving up a run, and he hasn't allowed an earned run in 11 out of his 12 outings.
So yeah, I like him. I like him in the high leverage situation right now, Crawly. That's who I want. I want Adbert Alzolay in all 8th, 9th inning high leverage situations.
I mean, this was a perfect setup. He had Stroman going pretty much, all the way into the 7th. Leiter's going to come in and he's going to pitch the 8th, and then Albert closes out in the 9th. That is how you draw it up. Unfortunately, a lot of pitchers don't get all the way late into the 7th inning. So, from a pitching standpoint, great job. It was another one of those offensively. It wasn't that great. It was another one of those head scratching lineups from David Ross. I mean, when this came out, I'm just looking. Madrigal leading off, then Tauchman, Suzuki, Happ, Swanson, Mervis, Wisdom, Morel, and Barnhart. So a lot of mixing around, and it just really offense continued to sputter. They had 2 hits and 3 walks through the first 6 innings. 2 of the walks came in the top of the first, a leadoff walk to Madrigal, and then in a bizarre play, Madrigal attempts to steal second on a 3-2 count to Suzuki. Suzuki draws the walk, but because Madrigal popped off the base and Thairo Estrada kept the tag on, Madrigal was called out after Gabe Kapler called for a replay. It's one of those things about baseball. I've never seen that in my entire life.
Yeah, sometimes you watch enough and you'll see something you never thought possible. I was glad to see Madrigal back up, and I guess so was David Ross because he starts all 3 games of this series. So that's also something that's interesting and makes you go, Right.
And then so we get to the top of the 7th. Seiya led off with a single. Happ walks. Swanson would fly out, and Mervis was hit by a pitch to load the bases. We talked on our previous podcast about how the Cubs had the 4th worst average with the bases loaded, but Nico, who didn't start the game, singled up the middle, scoring Suzuki and Happ to give the Cubs a 2-1 lead. Christopher Morel would then walk, and then Tucker Barnhart, who hadn't had a hit since May 13th, singled to score Mervis, and that run ended up being the difference of the game. But again, the Cubs had 3 runs on 7 hits, 8 total bases. They left 6 men on base, went 2 for 8 with runners in scoring position. Seiya had a big day reaching base all 4 times with a double, 2 singles, and a walk. And Nico, who came into the game to pinch hit for Wisdom in the 7th, was 2 for 2. But in general, when you look at that, I mean, that 5 out of your hits came from those 2 guys, right? 5 of the 7 hits.
Just for the record, based on what you just shared with everybody, Tucker Barnhart, May 13th. Today is June the 12th.
Right. So it's like first hit in a month. Oof. So, you just can't have 2 guys accounting for pretty much all of your hits. It's just, again, Stroman did a great job.
You won't go any kind of a winning streak with that happening. No, you will not.
No.
Game number 2, Crawly.
Kyle Hendricks versus John Brebbia. The Cubs win this one 4-0. Another weird lineup offensively, and the Cubs only had 5 hits, but the young guys came through. Christopher Morel and Matt Mervis had big games. Mervis had his first hit of the game on the top of the 3rd with a 420-foot bomb that bounced into McCovey's Cove. Christopher Morel broke out of his 0-for-22 slump when he homered in the top of the 4th to make it 2-0. And then in the top of the 5th, Morel added 2 more RBIs with a big 2-out single to give the Cubs a 4-0 lead. But the offense, as bad as it was, that wasn't the story. The story of the game was the professor, Kyle Hendricks, and just his 4-start back coming off the IL. He pitched an absolute masterpiece. He was rolling. He had a no-hitter going into the 8th inning on only 81 pitches. And I'm watching this, and I'm texting people, turn on your TV, turn on. It only took him 3 pitches to get Michael Conforto to ground out, 1 pitch to get Mike Yastrzemski to ground out. And so you're at 7 2/3 innings of no-hit ball, but Mitch Heringer had an 8-pitch at bat and finally a double off left center wall to break up the no-hit bid. That was the longest no-hit bid by any pitcher in MLB this season. Hendricks would finish up the 8th inning. Julian Merriweather would pick up the 9th. But that was 8 innings pitched. He gave up 1 hit, 1 walk, 3 Ks. It wouldn't have gotten that close to a no-hitter if it wasn't for a great catch by Mike Tauchman, who robbed Brandon Crawford in the 3rd. Probably the best catch I've seen this season so far for the Cubs.
Oh, it's the highlight. It's the highlight for the Cubs for sure, if not all of Major League Baseball. That was spectacular.
And then it was interesting because this was the first time that Kyle used the pitch comm system, and he was calling his own game, but he was working with Miguel Amaya, and they talked about some things. Kyle really praised Miguel Amaya. He is the first Cubs rookie in his debut season to catch a one-hitter since Steve Lake caught Chuck Rainey August 24th, 1983, long ago.
What did you think of the hit that went off the wall? I saw it on social media. Quite a few people had an issue with Ian Happ not trying hard enough, asking him to jump. He did look a little rough when the ball came off the wall. But did you think that was a ball that Ian Happ should have been in a position to catch? It looked like the exit velo on that thing was really high.
I think the exit velo was way too much. I don't think, I think that's a really hard catch to make. It wasn't like one. No, I never thought that was going to be a ball that it was caught. And I think Hendricks said he thought the ball was out.
Okay.
So, I mean,
I just wanted to ask you, I wanted to get your
yeah.
opinion. I thought it was worth bringing up. And yeah, I agree. It really interesting that Hendricks calling his own game. And I wonder, since he had that kind of success with it, if it's something that, Tommy Hotovy and David Ross will be okay with him doing yet again, even if Gomes is back there or if Barnhart was back there.
I think they're going to continue with Amaya with him. I really think that that's a good combination because I think that Amaya can learn a lot from Hendricks. So I hope to see the two of them together some more.
All right. So Cubs take the first 2 of 3. And then on Sunday afternoon, Hayden Wesniewski's on the mound. Cubs looking for the sweep.
Yep. Wesniewski versus John Brebbia. And you're going to be asking yourself, Crawly, didn't you just say John Brebbia started game 2? Yes, as an opener, and he started game 3 as well.
Something I don't know that we've ever seen, Crawly, right? Have we ever seen this? I know we've got a stat coming up, but my gosh.
I have not, because I was not alive last time it happened. The previous time it happened, the Cubs faced the same pitcher in consecutive games on consecutive days. Jack Sanford of the Giants started against the Cubs August 2nd and August 3rd, 1963. So, for
the record, I wasn't around then either, Crawly.
The good news, Cubs won the first series against San Francisco in 10 years. 10 years. But the bad news, they couldn't complete the sweep as they played just a god-awful game. And Dustin, our friend, Full Count Tommy, he's been on the show before. He put this tweet up earlier. The Cubs are now 4-16 in the planned final series of a game. So, and that's 1-6 after winning the first 2 games of the series. So, I mean, just absolutely awful on the final game of the series. And I don't think that, I'm trying to think back if David Ross is it's not like clearly putting in getaway day lineups, but I do not, that seems something funky. I don't know what it is, but that's weird.
Yep. That's a funky one. No doubt about it.
You figured 4-16. I mean, that's not even, that's not even close. And then that's what we talk about like, needing to win games in a row. If you can never win the final game of the series. I mean, it's irritating.
Yep. Super irritating. And then the kind of a funky lineup again, right? And then deciding to rest guys because they were getting today off as well, trying to get guys off their feet, all that stuff.
Yeah, everything was a disaster. Pitching starter Hayden Wesniewski hit the first batter he faced, then gave up a 2-run homer to former Jock Peterson to put the Giants up 2-0. Hayden got the second inning without any damage, but then another 2-home run homer to Jock in the third. That made it 4-0. Wesniewski allowed the first 2 base runners in the fourth before being pulled, and then it just got worse from there. The bullpen was a complete disaster. Fulmer gave up 1 run that was charged to Wesniewski. Brandon Hughes came on and gave 3 runs on 3 hits and couldn't get out of the inning. Rucker finished it up. Jeremiah Estrada gave up 2 runs, and Javier Assad gave up 3 runs on 5 hits and 1 walk.
I'm really disappointed the last couple of times we've seen Assad.
Absolutely. And the bullpen in general, its ERA is now 4.73 and its WHIP's 141. That is both 3rd worst in the league. The Cubs pitching gave up 13 runs on 15 hits, 4 of them home runs, 2 of them to Jock Peterson. Let's talk offense. Think it's any better? No. They scored 3 runs on 7 hits, 3 walks. The Giants committed, Dustin, 4 errors. And I'm telling you, they were sloppy errors. It wasn't like a bad, scorer's call on this. Balls off the glove, throwing balls away. The Cubs went 0 for 15 with runners in scoring position. They left 11 men on base. The Giants were trying to let them come back, and they couldn't. And to add insult to injury, the Cubs let veteran infielder Brandon Crawford pitch to the Cubs in the 9th, and they couldn't score a run off him.
I think he'd only needed 20 pitches to get through the inning, Crawly. 20 pitches. That's also embarrassing.
That's basically rubbing the Cubs' nose in it, and
it's exactly what it is.
And you know what? Good. I'm glad that happened, and I'm glad it happened because I hope they take umbrage and insult to that and start to really, they need to do better. But it's hard to, for the offense to get fired up when the bullpen was just so awful. And this has just been something we've talked about. I mean, obviously the offense, we've talked about their inability to hit for power, hit with runners in scoring position, but this bullpen's been a disaster. If you take a look at the free agents that they signed, Dustin, Julian Merriweather, better of late, 3.62 ERA. But they signed Brad Boxberger, 5.52 ERA, and he's injured. Michael Fulmer signed him, 5.93 bad. The guys that came back from last season, Michael Rucker, 4.97. Only one lefty in the pen, and he's been god-awful. Brandon Hughes with the 7.24 ERA. Those multi-inning options we were so excited about, Keegan Thompson, 4.22 in AAA right now. Javier Assad, 5.61. And the young prospects that they've called up, Jeremiah Estrada, 6.75, and Nick Birdie, 9. I mean, you're literally talking about your whole bullpen other than Merriweather, Leiter, and Alzolay have an ERA of 5 or above.
Yeah, that's bad. That's real bad, Crawly.
It's you combine that with an offense that struggles to score runs. That's why you're 9 games under 500, and they need to figure this out in a hurry.
In a hurry is right. This is season 2. It's episode number 43. Cubs Meatloaf. Not good enough. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. In this segment, Crawly interviews Danny Rockett, lead singer of the legendary Bleacher Bum Band.
Joining me now on the Fly the W podcast, I have the lead singer of the Bleacher Bum Band, the host of the Son Ranto Show, and the bard of the bleachers, Mr. Danny Rockett. Danny, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing okay. Cubs have won the last 2 games. Kyle almost had a no-hitter last night, and so I'm feeling pretty good because I know you and me both live and die by how the Cubs do this time of year. And I'm also feeling good about this album that the Bleacher Bum Band just put out, and I appreciate you having me on your pod to talk all about it.
Yeah, the Bleacher Bum Band. Now, in case our listeners aren't aware, the Bleacher Bum Band, I describe you guys as kind of like punk rockabilly for Cub fans. And I mean, I know it's hard to kind of pigeonhole you guys because your sound is so eclectic, but you guys really are the band for Cub fans and anybody that's around Wrigley Field. And so when your first album dropped, I think it was 2021?
Yeah. Well, we had attempted to drop it in 2020, but I actually don't think about what happened. 2021 is when the first album came out, and we had a lot of fun putting that together just because it gave us something to do while we were all stuck at home, finishing that record.
And it came out, and to me, it was a huge hit, and Cub fans everywhere just absolutely fell in love with it. Coming Back to Wrigley is one of my favorite songs. Cup Snakes Guy still makes me laugh. And of course, the legendary ballad of John Baker. And so you are a band out of Chicago. And obviously, like I said, you're the lead singer. You are the rhythm guitarist. Tell us about the other guys in the band.
Well, y'all know Bleacher Jeff. If you're a Cubs fan, you don't know Bleacher Jeff, then I don't know where you've been living under a rock or something like that. He's good friends with Ian Happ and a lot of the bullpen because he's out there in the left field well every single day, cheering on the Cubs, usually with a big old cup of Budweiser in his hand. But you can't miss him. He's a giant ogre of a man. He's got big hair and a big beard, and you can see him from really anywhere in the ballpark unless you're stuck behind a pole. You can probably see him as well as you can see Ian Happ, if not better. He's bigger than Ian Happ. So. We met out in the bleachers. In fact, I think we met at spring training. We don't even remember the day we met, but in the bleachers, him and I were sitting there watching a ball game down there in the left field well, and he told me that he's got a recording studio. And so that's I was like, oh, really? Let's go over there and jam. He's like, oh, my brother-in-law might want to play with us. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, well, let me bring my bass player from my other band. And all of a sudden, Bleacher Bum Band is bored, literally in the bleachers. But that's how Bleacher Jeff ended up getting to be part of the band. Jarrett Gable is our bass player, and we've been going to Wrigley Field together since we were, 12, 13 years old, something like that. Our parents were older parents, so they didn't really care about the dangers of Wrigleyville in the 80s, and they would just let us go down there by ourselves and enjoy a ball game in the bleachers. So we've been doing that for years. We reconnected years and years later, and lucky for me, The dude's an awesome guy. I mean, I didn't see him basically since age 16 all the way to age 44 or something like that. Like, so it was just 30 years gone. And then he comes back into my life. He plays bass for my band now. Like and we're both huge Cubs fans. There's two stories about drummers. The drummer on the album is a guy named Darko Kurjak, and he lives in Serbia. And he's in a famous band called the Party Breakers, which is a really great band. And you probably would like it more if you speak Serbian, but because it's all in Serbia. But it's a great rock band. They've been around for a long time, and they're kind of famous. Like they play stadiums, and they've got summer tours, and they're playing really big events out there. And but he played. His wife was going to Northwestern as a costume designer, and so our old bass player Aljin is a Bosnian guy. Hooked us up with this Serbian drummer. He ends up being our drummer for a little bit of time, like in 2019. He goes back to Serbia. He is actually on our first record, too, because we had to record everything remotely at that time. But he's such a great drummer that when our drummer quit, our regular drummer, Mikey Southside, who, by the way, was a Sox fan, so wasn't a great fit anyway. When he quit, I called up Darko. I'm like, hey, man, do you have time to record the drums for another Bleacher Bum Band because we hadn't found a new drummer yet. So Darko recorded all the drums for this album out in Serbia. So that's kind of a fun little story. I don't even know if he understands baseball because it's not a big sport out there. But our new drummer is awesome. Young guy, huge Cubs fan. We call him, we're trying to think of a name for him. His name's Tony, but we've been calling him like Tony Terrific, Tony Two Toms. We're not sure. We need a Cub fan nickname for him. So that's who else is in the Bleacher Bum Band when you'll see us live, when we play this summer.
Yeah, and that's the fun thing is I got to see Tony play with you guys over on opening day at Output, and it was an absolute blast, and everybody was loving it. And so, of course, on 6/9, you drop the new album. I love the cover. For those of you subscribing to the YouTube channel 670 The Score, you can see this picture of the album cover right here, and it's perfect. Out of Left Field, which is where you guys hang out, and the picture is from Ball Hawk Corner on Waveland and Kenmore. And I mean, I think that name is just pretty self-evident, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it kind of works in both ways, and in the fact that there's the old phrase, like, if you're a little, neurodivergent, they say, he's coming out of left field. And we're all kind of those kind of gentlemen in this band, I would say, at this point in our existences. And, of course, we actually do hang out in left field. And it has a very huge Cubs tie-in because I know just such a scholar of Cubs history where the out of left fields comes from, and it's the old West Side grounds.
West Side grounds, yeah. They used to have an insane asylum in left field, and you supposedly could hear people like screaming and laughing and all sorts of weirdness coming out of there.
And it was actually out in left field was the original phrase of it, and just how the etymology of phrases go as you work through time. It became out of left field, and now it became an album.
Well, it looks, I got you sent me some copies of the song. And of course, some of them I've heard before, some of them I heard for the first time, but I absolutely fell in love with this album. There are 9 songs representing 9 innings, and it's really a good mix. It is what the Bleacher Bum does best, which is, putting the Cubs experience in songs, and it's got something for everybody. So, you got the We Are the Cubs, which is a good album kickoff. Hug Watch, which, a lot of times I know that your songs go in different iterations as things change, but obviously when it comes time to the trade deadline, especially the last few years, we've seen a lot of hug watching. Blue Friday, I believe you and I were at that game when after the game they traded Rizzo and they proceeded to trade Baez, and Bryant was with minutes left to go before the trade deadline. The Ballad of Poncho Boy, for those on Twitter, just an absolute crack up for those that know the story of Bleacher Jeff's seat being taken by somebody that comes to less than 20 games. You got a tribute to 1969, and then I laughed at Steve Garvey's hairy arms just because you and I have talked about that 84 team in our young introduction to disappointment. You got Damn Steve Bartman. And then the last song is Steve Stone, which is, I've talked to you about it. Being a Deadhead, the Dead just played this weekend. It's got like a very, very punky, but psychedelic vibe that I absolutely love. And like, I don't know, like a lot of your songs are very up tempo. And this is just kind of gives me a little chill time to just kind of jam and sway along with the music, man. So just a great album. And that's what I'm usually doing at that time, is swaying to the music, if not staggering.
Yeah, that last one to Steve Stone, we've been joking about it, that we call it Two Chords and the Truth. But, that's the only kind of Sox related. This is for the whole city of Chicago. And the one song you failed to mention, it was Old Style, which there's a couple of songs on here that are just Chicago centric, and that, Old Style is, even though it's brewed in Wisconsin, it is known as like the Chicago beer. You see Old Style signs everywhere. That one was actually co-written by Bleacher Jeff, because we were thinking like, hey, what Chicago-y things can we write about? And Old Style, just top of list as it were. But yeah, well, I mean, I hope that Chicago digs this album, and Cubs fans, I think, will relate to it at the very least.
And it's one of those things too, that you do remind me of the Dead, that even though your songs are great on the album, it's even more fun. It's more of a trip seeing it live, man. So we'll talk about some of the gigs, but Danny, you've been kind enough to take out the old guitar and play us a couple of tunes here off the new album. So for those of you that want, again, this is a different version. This is an acoustic version that Danny's going to be performing. But if you want to hear the whole album with these songs, absolutely, we'll talk to you about how you can do that. But what are we hearing first here, Danny?
Well, I guess I'll start with Hug Watch, and I'll preface it by, I'm not going to play the whole song of any of these, I'll just give you like a little snippet of them. Because you should really go and hear the songs, how we mixed them and intended them and everything, with Jeff and Jarrett and Darko playing on it. But, as you said, we've been doing, and it looks like this year might be no different, in that we're going to end up watching at the end of July for our favorite players being traded off the Cubs. At least this year, it won't be quite as, it's not your Rizzos and your core dudes. But anyway, I wrote this song based upon a lot of hug watching. Hug watch, watching for hugs. All your favorite players getting traded from the Cubs. Hug a watch. Hug a watch. Hug a watch. What do you got? Don't want to give up nothing, but you want to get a lot. Division contenders want to take all of the players while you're filling up the system with a bunch of teenagers. Hug, watch, watching for hugs. All your favorite players getting traded from the Cubs. Hug, watch, watching for hugs. All your favorite players getting traded from the Hug, watch. Hug, watch. And then there's a couple more verses.
I'm just nervous there's going to be a Stro hug watch. Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. Well, especially after how he's been pitching, and like, I think I know everybody says he's older, and but he's not that old, and you're kind of like, well, then who will be pitching then? Because I'm not sure otherwise.
Can you imagine what Cubs history would have been like that? Instead of getting Cole Hamels, they ended up getting Justin Verlander.
Would have been nice. And I mean, and wouldn't it be nice if the Cubs, okay, don't get Stro, but give me Ohtani. Yeah, I mean, is that so much to ask?
Ohtani or bust, baby. Well, what do you got next for us here?
Well, I guess I need to preface this one. It's that I'll do the Ballad of Poncho Boy, which is at least I'll do a verse from it, which I'll preface. You mentioned there was a season ticket holder who one day tried to exact his vengeance upon Bleacher Bum Band's guitar player, Bleacher Jeff, who always sits down in the left field well. So apparently one day Jeff was saving some seats down there for all his friends, and some guy came and he wanted to sit there. And Jeff said, well, these seats are saved. I'm saving them for my friends. And he had a towel down and whatnot. So it made the guy really mad. And he just sat there, but he stewed about it the entire time. Was not happy. And then a couple weeks later, the guy drove back from Iowa with, fire in his eyes. And he had a plan. And that plan was to run to Jeff's usual seat. And I understand it's general admission and it's not his seat. Doesn't have a number and a row printed on it. But he went and he quote unquote stole the seat. Now, it's fair game, the seat. But Jeff went up there. He said, "Hey, buddy, just so you know, I usually sit here. I'll buy you a beer if you let me sit here." The guy's like, "Absolutely not. I got here first. This is my seat." So, and then the funny thing about it is that it rained that day. It was a bobblehead day, and you had to get there early to get the seat in the first place, and you had to get there early to get the bobblehead. But that man and his girlfriend or wife sat there, or abused friend, sat there in that first row, the left field well, all game for 7 hours straight in the pouring rain. They would not relinquish the seat. Jeff was down in the tunnel. I'm not going to sing in the whole song. You'll hear the entire story of it, but I'll just play a verse so you kind of get what it's all about. So, what key is this in? Oh yeah. A bobblehead Saturday in the rainy month of May. A smattering of bleacher fans were waiting at the gate. Fans began to stream to go see their favorite team. They made 3 separate lines to pass through security. There was one man who had a plan and knew just where to go. Run to section 504 and down to the first row. He had come prepared for rain with a plastic poncho. He'd get revenge with his girlfriend without getting soaked. And he sat there in the rain for 7 hours straight. He sat right through the weather that had made the game delayed. With his plastic poncho on, he sat all afternoon long. That's why I'm writing Poncho Boy this song.
And again, I'll never forget that day and the
tweet,
the tweet and people's reaction. It was one of those things where you just got that popcorn gif where you're just kind of just watching this thing play out.
Yeah, and I love those, kind of little stories about being a part of the ballpark fabric. It's like, that's like on our first album, The Ballad of John Baker was just some random game in 2014 where the backup catcher happened to get the win. And then that becomes like an anthemic, song that the Bleacher Bum Band does all the time. And like this one, same thing, it's just like you just take these dumb stories that happen at the ballpark because you never know what you're going to see or what's going to happen, whether it be to the fans or to the players or to the game or whatever. And this was, Jeff will never live it down, that's for sure, and neither will Poncho Boy because now he's enshrined in song.
He is part of Cubs lore. All right, can you do me some Steve Garvey's Hairy Arms, or what do you think?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'll give you a little Steve Garvey's Hairy Arms because this was our first. I know you were around there in 1984. I was 10 years old, and I remember those games, and it stayed up late to watch that one when Lee Smith gave up the homer in the bottom of the ninth, and the next day the Cubs were winning in Game 5, and it all kind of went south. And so this is like, it's kind of funny. It's a bit of a psychedelic number, but it's all about like basically childhood baseball trauma. So.
And again, this image of Steve Garvey with his little arm in the air, all hairy and gross, sticks with you. So let me hear what you got.
Well, and also just what timing I have now, because I think he's going to run for office right now in California. I saw on the news. So,
he's also coming to Rosemont for the national show in July. So I've been looking everywhere to find a picture of Steve Garvey's Hairy Arms. I can't find a good picture of him doing that, but he's going to be in Chicago. So maybe you just want to go there and heckle him. I have no idea.
Well, I'll go play him the song. I'll bring it. Hey, Steve, I wrote a song about you. When I was just a boy at 10 in 1984, before I drank an old style on my first shot of Malort, the Cubs played San Diego to be champs of the NL. Won the first 2 games at Wrigley, but it all went to hell. The Padres put up 7 to put away game 3. A homer off of Frazier and 5 on Eckersley. Then in a seesaw battle in critical game 4, the Cubbies lit up Gossage and they evened up the score. In Lee Smith's second inning in the bottom of the 9th, he got a strikeout swinging, everything was going fine. Then Lee gave up a single off the bat of Tony Gwynn. Steve Garvey hit a home run, the Padres got the win. He ran around the bases with his fist held in the air. His wrist up to his elbow was all covered in hair. It's a painful memory that broke my prepubescent heart. But I got PTSD. Oh, sorry, I screwed up. But I got PTSD from Steve Garvey's hairy arms. Steve Garvey's hairy arms. Then there's another verse.
I can, like I said, still picture that, like you said, that home run to Lee Smith, and he looks like he's in shock after giving it up. Definitely some PTSD.
Yeah.
Now,
or TPS or whatever the hell I was about to say. PT Smith, you know.
it's live, man. It's live. That's the fun thing. Now, if anybody is interested, they can go to your Bleacher Bum Band streaming pages. You guys are on all the services, Spotify,
Well,
YouTube.
not yet, but
Not yet.
soon,
The
yeah.
17th.
Yeah, well, it's funny how it works. It just kind of gets unleashed little by whatever the individual streaming services decide to put it up. But yeah, it should be right around the 17th. Really, what on the 17th is more of a celebration of releasing the album that we're going to do at Output Lounge on right after the ball game, after the Cubs play the Orioles. Right after that's done, we'll be over at Output Lounge, which is just north of Wrigley Field on Clark. You see a picture of me and Bleacher Jeff there on opening day. That you took that picture, huh?
I did, yeah.
That's a good one. That's calendar material. But yeah, so we're quote unquote releasing it or celebrating it that day. But right now what we're doing is, I know people don't consume music this way anymore, which is really a shame for musicians, to be honest, because it makes it hard for us to sell our music, and really do this for a living. It makes it difficult to have a financially viable musical project. But so what we're doing is we're selling a t-shirt instead of an album, but it's called the Shalbum. It's a shirt, it's an album, and you get to download the record. You could also just, when I give you the link, you can download it off of Google Drive, listen to it and whatever you listen to things on. And you can also, of course, stream it from Google Drive, because Google Drive allows you to stream it from there before it hits all the major streamers. There's also a different version of the song you just heard called Steve Garvey's Hairy Arms, with actually some real audio of that moment.
Oh, cool.
And a psychedelic beginning and ending, but I couldn't release it that way because, the express written consent of Major League Baseball was not obtained or tried to be obtained. I don't want to deal with that stuff. So I'm like, it's just a little moment, but I can give it to the people who buy the Shalbum, which is a Bleacher Bum Band shirt. It's black with like fluorescent, says Bleacher Bum Band, kind of in the style of the old 1980s and 90s shirts. It's fluorescent lettering, which is back in. I'm wearing a tie-dye right now, as you can see, with bright colors. And so you can buy the Shalbum if you go to sunranto.com, which is my podcast / Bleacher Bum Band. And
shirt and an album. That's quite the deal.
Shirt and an album, or you could just buy the shirt or just buy the album, depending on how you want to do it. It's also like available to our $5 Patreon subscribers at sunranto.com. You get it that way. Bleacher Bum Band also has a Patreon, so look that up. Patreon.com/ Bleacher Bum Band, and you can get all of our music anytime we put out like a parody song or know about gigs. We have plans to do special events for our Patreon members and special releases. Also, our Patreon members have heard versions of these songs as we've been writing them and mixing them, because I've sent out demos and just to kind of like test balloons in a way, but you get to hear this stuff first and kind of see the process if you're our patron. And those people already received the album as well. So And then by the 17th, it should be on all the Spotify's and the YouTube Musics and the Pandoras and the whatever the title. I don't know.
And again, just a reminder, on the 17th, you guys will be playing the album debut party at Output in Wrigleyville, right on Clark Street. Best Wings in Wrigleyville.
Yeah.
Approximately around 5 p.m. You never know with games and this and that. Free show, and there's tons of raffle prizes, which I always love. They're always hilarious. I don't know if the NIck Madrigal bobblehead will be making its return, but you know.
I actually managed to give that away. Yeah, that's a good point, Crawly. You always help us too when you come out to the gigs. Unfortunately, you won't be around for this one, but we have a raffle, and we have all sorts of Cubs bobbleheads, and I got a luggage tag, and we'll give away a shirt or two. And so there's always something, fun that we like to make it fun for Cubs fans, get a little gear out there. And yeah, it's just a good time. We'll play for probably about an hour, and it's free, like you said, but you better get there because I know a lot of people are planning to even come in from out of town. I'm super excited to see a lot of our fans. And also we have another gig coming up. We're kind of doing we're going to South Bend, Indiana on July 8th. We'll be singing the national anthem before the game. And then we're playing at a place called McCormick's Coney Island, right downtown South Bend. They're a really great dive bar. Looking forward to rocking out. We'll play after the South Bend Cubs game there. So 2 chances to see us coming up, and then we'll add some more dates throughout the summer.
And I can tell you, we went to South Bend before, and they remember us very clearly. It was quite the event. But, like I said, you guys, the Bleacher Bum Band, are part of the fabric of the Wrigley Field experience. I really, if you're, hearing about this band for the first time, they're also on Twitter at Bleacher Bum Band. You can also follow Danny, and he'll always have information about the Bleacher Bum Band at Sun Ranto. And so really, like I said, download it, listen to it. And I guarantee you, I can just tell you as a Cub fan, there's just so much to love and enjoy about this band. I'm really excited for you, Danny, and can't wait to see what happens this summer and catching you live.
Oh yeah. Well, you're always like a huge part of our shows, Crawly, and, just up there singing our songs back to us and getting the crowd into it. And, it's just a great party, and the more the merrier as far as I'm concerned. And also I want to say, good, have a nice trip to Myrtle Beach. Go tell those kids we're all counting on them up here in Chicago.
The Birds are in first place. The Birds are hot. So Cub fans, have faith. Follow Sun Ranto. Follow the Bleacher Bum Band. Download the shalbum. You don't get the shirt, but order the shalbum. How's that?
Yeah, shirt, album, shalbum.
Yeah, it's all good. And thank you so much, Danny, for coming on here. And like I said, get this album, buy it.
Yeah, buy it.
All right, Crawly, great interview there. Again, this is season 2. It's episode 43. Cubs Meatloaf, not good enough. Let's take a look at some news and notes and get a preview of the, Crawly, first place Pittsburgh Pirates at Wrigley Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday night. Yeah,
there was all sorts of news, and you kind of teased it out in segment 1 a little bit. Marcus Stroman, always active on Twitter, isn't he? And so let's start Stroman again with another great start. And you just take a look here. He's Marquis tweeted this out for all the people that are subscribed to the Fly the W channel and the Score YouTube channel. Marquee Sports Network right here put on here. He has 12 quality starts. He leads MLB, 2.42 ERA, second in NL. 104 whip leads the NL. 191 opponent batting average leads the NL. 85.2 inning pitch leads the NL. He's clearly one of the best pitchers, if not the best pitchers in the NL. And a lot of people were tweeting out these stats. And then Stroman replied to somebody, Chief Cub, and he said, "My agent and I made multiple attempts to engage them on an extension. Club wasn't interested in exploring it now. We'll see how it plays out. Love everything about the Cubs organization." Now, obviously, this got a lot of people's attention, and he was interviewed in The Athletic, and he said, "I'm just being straight up and real and honest with the negotiations. I want nothing more than to be a Cub. I kill myself 24/7 on and off the field to perform well, to keep my body in position, keep my mind in position. I truly believe I prepare like nobody else, so I know my worth. We've been going to the front office from spring training very open that I want to be here. We've continued these thoughts up until now. There's been nothing from their side, no offers, no talks really at all. And Dustin, we've been through this before with a lot of people angry that they don't feel that the Cubs make a good faith effort in negotiations.
And that's fine. But guess what? This isn't going to help. Going to social media and having podcasts like ours and shows like the Mully and Haw Show and all the other shows on 670 The Score, that's not going to help. That is not going to help what Marcus Stroman wants to do. They are not going to like this. And he does not have age working on his side, number one. Number two, as we started the show, we don't know, we as a fan base, we as a Cubs organization do not know where the Cubs are going yet. Okay. And Marcus Stroman, what he could bring back from a contender is a Brinks truck at the moment.
Well, so, we do have, you had, what is it? Who was on Mully and Haw that you had on here today? You had,
John
Heyman talking about the extension, and we have a clip from that right here.
Yeah, I still think Stroman would. I think Stroman has been consistently good this year. Giolito's certainly been hot lately and very talented pitcher who's been a little bit up and down, but certainly has potential. So, I would say Stroman would have a little more value, but I think they both have big value. This is really a seller's market. And what I mean by that is that anybody who's selling, anybody's going to get a big, big premium. Just about every team is going to be looking for starting pitching who's in the race. And, there are, at this point, very few sellers. And some of the sellers, like the Royals, the A's, they don't have much in the way of starting pitching to sell. So if you're one of those teams in the Central that's looking, like on the cusp of a bad race, it may behoove you to actually become a seller. I could see Bieber with the Guardians potentially getting a big haul, but I certainly see Stroman and Giolito also getting big hauls. I would say Stroman more than Giolito, but both would get a lot.
Okay, there we have it.
So tomorrow we're going to have Jim Callis on, and we're going to talk to Jim Callis. He knows every prospect that's out there, not just with the Cubs, but all over the place. And we're going to ask him what type of guys might be available from teams like, let's say, the Braves or the Orioles or other teams that might be buyers, and what they have in their farm system that you might get in return. And at this point, Crawly, if you're going to trade Stroman, I need better than a scratch-off ticket. One of the guys that comes back needs to be somebody that can play every day, is a positional player or a DH that plays every day if you want Marcus Stroman. Because Marcus Stroman on one of those teams is probably going to be a 2 or a 3, and you need 3 starters in the playoffs, and he would be filling that role for a contender.
Now, here's my problem here, Dustin, and this is what doesn't make sense to me, is that if Stroh went to Jed Hoyer at the beginning of spring training and his people, and I have no reason to doubt him on that, we're at a different phase. So when we talk about Lucas Giolito, you see the window closing for the White Sox, and it may be time for them to pack it up and roll it in. But with the White Sox, or with the Cubs, what have you done? You just signed Dansby Swanson to 6 years. You just extended Nico Horner and Ian Happ for another 3 years. So you're supposed to be in the position.
Seiya Suzuki's on that same timeline as Dansby Swanson. Jamison Tyon's on that same timeline. So you're talking, but they listen, we said it from the beginning. We're going to keep banging it on this podcast. They are in desperate need of a big offensive bat. They are in desperate need, if they want to win the Central, of a big offensive bat. And you know what buys a big offensive bat? $30 million a year. I think Cubs are in more need of a big offensive bat than 4 more years of Marcus Stroman.
But you have to understand here. Let's look at things, okay?
And I know we'd like both, sure.
Right. And I know the free agent market isn't great right now, but I think part of it is guys underperforming right now. And this is what you get when you have young players like Matt Mervis or Christopher Morel, is you're going to go through extended slumps. But I would prefer to have You need a rotation. Kyle Hendricks is up after next year. You saw how Hayden struggled so far this year. You have other pitchers in the minors like Jordan Wicks and Ben Brown, who's been on the show.
And you're hoping Justin Steele is going to come back in a couple of weeks, right?
Right, but there is no guarantee. As you can tell with these young guys, you're going to have your learning curves and you're going to have your ups and downs. It's very rare that a guy just comes up and starts killing it right away and has no slumps. And so if you're telling me you're going to get rid of Marcus Stroman, and I don't know 100% what's with Justin Steele, and we don't know what we have if God forbid, if something happens, he ends up with Tommy John or something to that degree. Now you're telling me you're going to be out Marcus Stroman, you're going to be out Justin Steele, and you're going to be out Kyle Hendricks?
Well, that might be, Crawly, and what you're saying are all the things, if you and I are talking about it, these are things obviously that Jed Hoyer and Carter Hawkins are talking about. They don't owe Stroman anything right this second. So nope. I think it doesn't do him any good to be, hey, just so you know, if it doesn't turn out the way you fans want, I've been trying. I don't see how that gets things going. I don't see why Jed or Carter need to respond or say, okay, fine, we'll text your agent.
You know what, though? I 100% agree, but he's just staking out his claim. And I think that there was John Heyman has another clip here where, and we don't have to play it, but he's just talking about, he's had problems in the past. He had a problem with one team in the past, and that was the New York Mets. And John Heyman's a New York guy. And there is a lot of bad.
There's been more than that, right? I mean, he's been on, how many teams has he pitched for?
I know with Toronto, everything went fine for the most part. I mean, I think the big problem and the misconception comes with what happened with the Mets. And I think that was a really messy divorce, so to speak. And so I think that Stroman's just putting it out here that this is where he wants to be. And I don't think there's anything wrong with getting ahead of the story. And then all of a sudden you saw what happened with Wilson Contreras and how all of a sudden there were some leaks later on and Wilson did this and Wilson did that. You know what? He's putting it out there. I want to be here. I'm working my butt off. The Cubs had a chance to, go into extensions before Stroman even went into this year. And now he's having a great year. He just got that more expensive.
That's fine. And the Cubs can afford it. Keep doing what you're doing and it'll all work out. Either you're going to get a Brinks truck from the Ricketts or you're going to get it from somebody else. But I think sometimes you got to know when to just keep your mouth shut, keep performing like you are, and you're going to get paid. So
I think
Stroman. Maybe if they pay him, he'll show up to CubsCon, Crawly. Maybe he'll then decide to come to CubsCon.
I'll invite him personally, but Stroman is one of those guys that he isn't going to be quiet. That's not him. That just isn't him. And if that's the thing is that you take the good with the bad, and that's the same as it was with Wilson Contreras or Carlos Zambrano or anything. Those are guys that say what they got to say. They play with their hearts on the sleeve and they live with their hearts on the sleeve. And so that's just it. And I would be happy to keep Stroman around. We'll see what happens.
I don't want to run him out, Crawly. Don't misunderstand. I don't know what it's June 12th. There's a ton of time left.
Okay.
The Cubs can operate on their own timeline. They don't have to do anything. Nothing's going to change other than you're right. It's going to cost them more money, which they have. We all agree they have it, right? They have the money. So spend it, right?
I hope so. Now we said Stroman's going to be an all-star. All-star selections voting first round has just come out. You've probably gotten these tweets that show you or the emails. Mancini, Horner, Swanson, Wisdom, Gomes, Bellinger, Suzuki, Happ, and Morel. Vote for them. The first updates have just come out right now, and you can take a look here. This is from Megan Montemurro. She said Cubs in top voting at respective positions. Dansby Swanson's in 5th place at shortstop. Trey Mancini, 5th in first base. Christopher Morel, 5th in DH. Nico Horner, 8th in second baseman. Yan Gomes, 8th. Patrick Wisdom, 8th. Cody Bellinger, 8th. And Seiya Suzuki, 10th.
The only person that deserves to be on this list and should be way higher is Dansby Swanson and maybe Nico Horner. But Dansby Swanson should be winning at short. He should be the starting shortstop for the National League. There is no question in my mind about that.
Well,
the same group of people are voting, and that's why a bunch of these guys are 5th. But again, also, there's a long way to go in this process.
Right. As first base, Freddie Freeman, Pete Alonso, and Matt Olson are your top 3. Now, second base, that's where you were asking.
All way better than Trey Mancini. Right.
But I don't – Luis Arias has had a phenomenal year. There's no way he's not number 1. Ozzie Albies and Nolan Gorman from the Cardinals, Miguel Vargas and Jeff McNeil round out the top 5. That's a tough group, Dustin.
He could be, but
I
I'm
mean,
saying I think we could see him top 5. I'm not saying he should be number 1 or 2, but I think top 5. I think 8's a little low.
Right. Maybe 8's a little bit low. And then if you're looking, Orlando Arcia, the Braves up there, Francisco Lindor's number 2, Xander Bogaerts 3, Matt McClain 4, and Dansby Swanson 5. I agree that Dansby should be higher than a couple of those guys.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it, Crawly. But again, we got plenty of time. So obviously the front office is listening to the podcast because Nick Madrigal was called up, and Miles Mastroboni, or Miles Mastacholi, as a caller on the score called him, was optioned down to Iowa. And then Madrigal all of a sudden started all 3 games against the Giants.
Well, I don't have a problem with it because he was hot coming in, 488, 580, 854 with this 2 weeks in the ChicagoCubs. So if the guy's hot, I have no problem letting him play. That's fine. I mean, that works for me. If you're going to do that, play the hot hand until he's not. You know what I mean?
Right.
The concern
just glad it happened. I'm just glad it happened.
Yeah, and the concern I have is that the guy that was the most hot for the Cubs, and he's still on our hot and not list, Seiya Suzuki, didn't play the last 2 games with what they're calling general soreness. He didn't play Saturday or Sunday, and David Ross said he's got some soreness. I think he's a little bit under the weather, so we'll give him one more day. I think he's not feeling 100% as a whole. He's not injured. He'll be fine. I think we're pretty confident in that. So Seiya had multiple hits on the last game against the Angels, had multiple hits in the first game against the Giants, didn't play Saturday and Sunday. So Cubs really need him to be okay, if you get what I'm saying.
Absolutely. I'm not going to, believe it or not, for once, I'm not going to go overboard about this, but he better be in the lineup, and he better be in the hot category when they take on the Pirates starting on Tuesday night.
Yeah, last season, the Pirates finished with a record of 62-100, tied for last in the NL Central. The Cubs played the Pirates 19 times last season and took the series 10 games to 9. Cubs went 5-4 at Wrigley and 5-5 in PNC. The Pirates haven't been relevant since Jake Arrieta crushed their souls in the 2015 wild card game. I think Kyle Schwarber also put one out in the river. But years of acquiring draft picks and trades have this team on the edge of breaking out. Off-season key additions. Yes, Mr. Dick Mountain Rich Hill is still alive and pitching. Carlos Santana was a good acquisition. Andrew McCutchen is back. Austin Hedges, Vince Velasquez, Harleen Garcia, Jinman Choi from Tampa Bay, and then Connor Joe. So a lot of good additions. Some losses. We've talked about Mr. Newman and Kevin Newman, Zach Thompson, and Bryce Wilson. So a lot of additions. Not a lot of subtraction so far. So you're going to have to.
One of their best young guys and one of their best young players is out.
Yeah.
Fractured his ankle.
O'Neal Cruz has been out.
That guy's going to be special.
He's a stud. And so you're looking right now. And I remember, the first couple of weeks we kept saying, this ain't going to hold. This ain't going to hold. Well, guess what? The Pirates are, like you said, in first place, 34-30. They're 7-3 in their last 10. So they are hot as a team. Milwaukee has lost 4 in a row, dropping them into second, followed by Cincinnati. The Cubs, 9 games below 500, 28-37, 4-6 in their last 10. And we thought this wasn't going to last with Pittsburgh and it wasn't going to last with St. Louis, but you got Pittsburgh in first and St. Louis in last. I can't even remember the last time that happened.
Yeah, I'd love to get a guy like Chris Kampka to look into that for us. That is really crazy. But here you go, Crawly. The Cubs have an opportunity to make some hay starting Tuesday night. Jameson Taillon, a former Pirate, right? And maybe he can finally get a win for the Cubs.
Well, he's been pitching better as late as we know, but it's one of those things where I just don't ever feel comfortable when we make our predictions with him. Last time out, he went 5.1 innings, gave up 5 hits, 5 earned runs, had 4 walks and 5 strikeouts against the Angels. So he had been doing better previous couple games. He had his first win in San Diego where he went 5.2 and he gave up 1 earned run. And against Cincinnati, he only went 4.2, giving up 4 runs. So, I mean, when you look at his game logs and you look at what he's done here, you're just hoping he can get somehow in the 5th and 6th inning underneath 4 runs. So I'm just not really confident every time he takes the mound just yet.
But now would be a good a time as ever to get to get the thing going, right?
Absolutely. It's got to, that's the only way you're going to get on the run that Jed Hoyer talked about is you're talking about to me, I look directly at Jameson Taillon and I look directly at Hayden Wisniewski and the entire hitting staff, all the hitters. But those are the two guys that got to keep you in it. You can't just because this is not, the Cubs offense is not one. Yes, occasionally they have the big 6, 7, 9 run output, but in general, it's 2, 3 runs. That's about it. So just got to be more here. So Luis Ortiz is going for the Pirates. He's 1-2 with a 4.23 ERA. He's only started 6 games. Last time out against Oakland, he went 5 innings pitched, gave up 10 hits, but only 2 earned runs. Against St. Louis, that was his previous start, but I don't believe he started that one. Or that was his previous game, but I don't believe he started that one. He's kind of been shuttling in between. No, he did start it. He started and he only went 2 innings and gave up 1 earned run. So I don't know if that was an opener move or what. But yeah, he's just really a guy that kind of a bizarre young man here. He went against Seattle, gave up 5 hits, 3 earned runs. So don't know a lot about Luis Ortiz. He's only 24 years old. So Pittsburgh is full of these young guys. He was called up to the Pirates on May 9th, 2023. So he didn't start the year with the Pirates.
I hope we don't learn anything more about him, except that the Cubs put up a big crooked number against him.
Agree. Game 2, Drew Smiley. Always keeps you in it like we've talked about, but just a guy that I could really, I just need him to kind of really have a big game, really have a shutdown type game. That to me would absolutely be right what the Cubs need here. He did a really good job against the Angels last time. The guy got a loss, but he went 6 innings pitched, gave up 7 hits, only 2 earned runs. So you can't really peg that on him. And then against San Diego, he went 5.2, 7 hits, 3 earned runs. And then that Cincy start was a bad one. But in general, he's been doing a good job, giving up just 2 or 3 runs here and there. But the Cubs, like I said, just not a team that, scores a lot of runs. And then on the Pirates side, you got Dig Mountain, a.k.a. Rich Hill. I can't believe this guy's still in the league. And this one's got me nervous because I just got a feeling like the way that the Cubs hitter are, they're going to be flailing against these guys. We'll see what happens. Against the Mets last time out, he went 7 innings and only gave up 2 earned runs. Against St. Louis, 6.2 innings, gave up 1 earned run. He had a really bad start against San Francisco, though he went 6 innings and gave up 6 earned runs. But in general, the old man, I remember watching him start game 1, or not game 1, it was game 3 of the 2007 NLDS versus the Diamondbacks. Gave up a home run on the first on the first pitch he faced, I believe. But he's been, he had a really bad start the second game against the White Sox, actually, of the season. But since then, he's been pretty solid. And like I said, he's one of those guys that makes me nervous that he's going to have the Cubs hitters off balance. And then in game 3, we're going to have Marcus Stroman right here. And we talked about Stroman, the quality starts, the wins, the batting average against, everything just phenomenal. 6.2, 2 earned runs against San Fran, 6 innings, 0 earned runs against San Diego. And then, of course, that 9 inning, 0 earned runs, only 1 hit against Tampa Bay. So the guy's just been absolutely phenomenal. He's going to go up against Johan Oviedo. Oviedo is 3-5 so far on the year. And he's had a pretty, like I said, just pretty solid start. But against the New York Mets, he went 6.1 innings. He gave up 2 earned runs. Against Oakland, 7 innings, gave up 2 earned runs. And against San Francisco, 4.1, he gave up 1 earned run, but he did have 5 walks to go with 5 strikeouts. So it's not like he's a guy that's been lighting it up either. So I'm hoping that, very similar to what I thought with San Francisco, I think, I like the pitching matchups and I think it favors the Cubs. What doesn't favor the Cubs is the hot and not, Dustin.
Oh, I mean, again, that Seiya Suzuki is in the hot and he hasn't played in the last 2 games is going to tell you a lot.
And the funny thing is, it really there really is nobody close when you talk to the hot and not here. Like, no. I'm like sitting here and I'm like, I can't call this guy hot here. So it was Seiya Suzuki, who I did have on the hot because he only missed 2 games. But in the last 7 games, he's been playing pretty well. And so hopefully he can continue to be successful. But when we talk about the knots, that's when we start to have a lot of problems here, because the list of knots is just absolutely awful. When we take a look at Seiya, he is 6 for his last 15. He got hot. He was slashing 400, 471, 533 in his last 7 before he had to sit down. He had no home runs, no RBIs, but he did have 2 doubles. But then once you start going down there, it literally the third guy on the hot list would be Tucker Barnhart. So that just
my goodness gracious. And the guy hasn't had a first hit since May 13th. Crawly, come on. Stop it.
Dansby Swanson, we talked about him. He is struggling. 2 for his last 23, 9 strikeouts to 2 walks. That's a slash line of 0.87, 0.160, 0.087. That is
the strikeouts. The strikeouts is what concerns me the most there. That's what bothers me the most of the strikeouts.
Ian Happ, not much better, a little better. 3 for his last 20, no home runs, no RBIs. He's slashing 150, 346, 150. So just another guy that those are 2 guys that you just can't have being that bad.
I would consider batting him leadoff to start the Pittsburgh series.
I've heard that before, and he has
work some walks, get on base.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not against that situation, so we'll see what happens there.
All right, so the Pirates come into town, Crawly. Who do we have to watch out for? Because I think in this segment last week you mentioned Jock Peterson.
Yep, and this time it's Ke'Bryan Hayes, who's 11 for his last 26. He has 4 RBIs, slashing 423, 423, 577. Another guy, local guy, made good. Jack Sawinski has 5 for his last 15. He has 2 home runs and 4 RBIs. That guy is slashing 333, 389, 800 slug. And all I can tell you is every time this guy comes to Wrigley Field, his family comes out and everything, he just does nothing but hit the snot out of the ball. So please be careful with Jack Sawinski. As far as the knot is concerned, Carlos Santana was the big free agent signing. 3 hits in his last 19 at bats, 1 home run, 1 RBI. So he's slashing 158, 273, 316. And Andrew McCutchen, he's back. 3 for his last 16. He's got no home runs, 2 RBIs, but he's slashing 188, 481, 188. But that's a guy who loves playing at Wrigley as well. So just be on the lookout.
All right. Thank you for the tip. We'll be watching. Hopefully the Cubs are paying attention to who's hot and who's not as well, buddy.
Absolutely.
Prediction time?
Absolutely. I'm going Cubs take 2 out of 3. I'm feeling some home cooking looks good. I like the Marcus. I think that they have 2 games that I feel that they really truly have a chance to win, with Stroman automatically putting that in the win column. And so you got to just take 1 out of the next 2, one from either Jamison Tyone and Drew Smiley. I'm hoping that it's the Drew Smiley one, but we'll wait and see on that one.
Yeah. Well, Crawly, what I am hoping for is that they win the first 2, and then we are going for the sweep with our guy, Marcus Stroman, on the mound, and that's when it's all going to happen. So let's go get 3. I am calling for a sweep at Wrigley Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday against the first place Pittsburgh Pirates.
This is your chance. You got 6 out of your next 9 games against the team leading the
9,
division.
You can make some big hay here. You make a big move right now.
Yes, sir. So let's get excited. Go to Wrigley Field. Cheer on the Cubs. I will not be there. I will be in Myrtle Beach. So be paying attention to the socials, as we will be there to kind of show you what's going down in the beach.
All right. I can't wait to see that. That's a wrap, Crawly. Don't forget to listen, download, review. Most importantly, subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. Follow us on the socials, Fly the W on Facebook and on Instagram. Email us, flythew670gmail.com. Now you can watch us on YouTube by subscribing to 670 The Score YouTube channel.
Let's sink those Pirates. Go Cubs. Hey guys, it's Crawly. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date with our latest episodes. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Go Cubs!